I was standing by the dessert table trying to help my son cut a slice of cake when I saw it. A cardboard box. It was on a little folding table right next to the guest book and wedding favors. At first, I thought maybe it was for donations to a honeymoon fund or maybe a charity Mira supported. But then I saw the sign. Handwritten in pink glitter pen, decorated with ribbon, and underneath in bold Sharpie. People were laughing. Not in a mean way exactly, not out loud, but that kind of fake sympathy laughter that stings harder than outright cruelty. Little smirks, whispered jokes, loose change clinking as someone tossed a few coins in like they were feeding a vending machine. One woman, someone from Mira's work I think, looked at me, giggled and said, "Oh, don't be shy, take your tip." I just stood there, frozen, my hand still resting on the plastic cake cutter. My son Kian looked up at me. His eyes were wide, curious, confused. "Mom," he whispered, "why's your name in the box?" I didn't know what to say. Because what do you say when you realize you're the punchline at your own cousin's wedding? I looked around for Mira. She was laughing at the head table with her new husband, a champagne glass in her hand, her dress sparkling under the chandelier light. She didn't even glance at me. Like she didn't just humiliate me in front of 100 people I'd spent the last month helping her impress. I wasn't even supposed to be here. I almost didn't come. Between work and school pickups and keeping Kian's asthma meds refilled, I barely had time to breathe, let alone attend a 3-day wedding celebration in heels and a borrowed dress. But Mira had begged me, "Please, Jaya, I need you here. I need family." So I came. I did her makeup for the engagement photos. I helped her design her wedding invites in Canva because she didn't want to waste money on a graphic designer. I stayed up late steaming her bridal sari the night before because her stylist canceled last minute. And now, I was a joke. I could hear coins dropping into that box behind me. Someone said, "She's got guts showing up in that dress. She's clearly the charity case." It was an old dress. My mother's, actually. I'd taken it in at the waist and stitched a new hem by hand just so it didn't look like I'd walked in off the street. I hadn't wanted to stand out. I just wanted to belong. Kian was tugging my hand. I blinked down at him. "Are we poor?" he asked quietly. Not embarrassed, just trying to understand. Like he thought maybe it explained why I was always so tired, why we didn't have a car, why sometimes dinner was just cereal. "No, sweetheart," I said. "We're just smart with money." That was my lie. That was my shield. The truth was, I had been broke. Flat out broke. 2 months ago, I was doing online transcription jobs at night just to make rent. My paycheck from waitressing barely covered daycare. I didn't even tell Mira because I knew she'd look at me the way she used to back in high school when I wore off-brand shoes. But she didn't know that I'd secretly covered the wedding deposits when her venue almost canceled. She didn't know I'd negotiated discounts with the DJ, the florist, and the photographer because she was panicking, and I wanted her to have her big day, even if it meant taking on debt. And this was what I got: a cardboard box, a glitter pen, and my name next to the word charity. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear, but I didn't say a word. I just squeezed Kian's hand and started walking toward the exit. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around and there he was, Uncle Rajan, the groom's father, my late father's brother, the only man who'd ever stepped in when I needed one. He looked right at me and said, "Stay." Just that. One word, not a question, not a plea, a quiet command. His eyes didn't match the polite smile he was wearing for the crowd. No, his eyes were sharp, almost angry. "Just stay for the speeches," he said. And I had no idea why, but I did. Before the wedding, before the box, before the laughter, I was just trying to survive. Morning started before the sun came up. I'd pack Kian's lunch, feed our cranky old cat, brush my hair into something presentable, and then bike to the diner where I worked the morning shift. After school pickup, it was homework, dinner, and whatever freelance task I could squeeze in before I passed out at midnight. Every dollar mattered. Every small win felt like a mountain. I never had time for pity, not from myself, and definitely not from others. I'd been a single mom since I was 24. Kian's father left a month after I told him I was pregnant. My mother said I should have seen it coming. Maybe she was right, but I didn't have time to cry about it. I had a baby to feed, rent to pay, and no backup plan. Just me. That's why family was everything. Even when they forgot me, even when they used me, I still showed up. Because my father raised me that way, before cancer took him when I was 16. The only person who ever really stepped up after that was my Uncle Rajan, my dad's older brother. He took care of the funeral costs, checked in on my mom now and then, gave me advice no one else bothered to offer. He was proud, traditional, a man of few words. But when I dropped out of college to raise Keon, he didn't judge me. He just asked, "What do you need?" I never forgot that. That's why, when Mira called me out of the blue 6 months before her wedding, I picked up. We hadn't been close in years, not since she moved to Boston for grad school and started treating our hometown like an embarrassing ex. I always knew Mira wanted something bigger, fancier friends, curated photos, destination dreams. She was the golden child, the family's big hope. But when she called, she sounded desperate. Her original wedding venue had canceled due to construction delays. Her decorator ghosted her. Her parents were freaking out. She said, "Jaya, I need your help. You're good at making things work." That part was true. I am good at making things work, with no money, no margin, no excuses. So I did. I found her a new venue that could accommodate her theme and her 150 guests. I helped her rework the entire budget after she maxed out 2 credit cards. I negotiated with vendors, pulled in favors, and even paid a deposit or 2 using my emergency savings. Because you'll get it back after the wedding, she promised. I never told anyone, not even Kian, because I wasn't doing it for recognition. I was doing it because I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd finally be part of something joyful again. I wanted Kian to see a real wedding, a full family, laughter, dancing, joy. We didn't have that. I hadn't even gone on a real date in 5 years. This was the closest we'd get. So I worked, quietly, tirelessly, all behind the scenes, while Mira posted reels about her bridal skincare routine and called herself a chaotic bride-to-be. I was in the background making sure the chaos didn't swallow her whole. And when the big day finally came, I felt proud. Not for the wedding itself, but because I'd pulled it off. I'd found a dress, my mother's old sari tucked away in a cedar chest. I altered it by hand in the evenings. I even taught Kian how to tie a child's kurta. He was so excited. He said, "You look like a princess, Mom." I remember standing in the mirror that morning, holding my breath. It was the first time in years I felt like I belonged to something beautiful. And for a while, everything felt perfect. The music, the mandap, the smell of jasmine and rosewater, Kian spinning in circles on the dance floor with some cousins he barely knew. I thought maybe all the late nights and empty bank accounts were worth it. Maybe I'd finally stepped out of the background. But I didn't realize yet. People only saw me as useful, never worthy. And when I saw that box labeled Single Mom Fund, I understood exactly where I stood. Not family, not friend, not even guest, just the joke. The charity case, and somehow that hurt more than being forgotten. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, that the box, the sign, the glitter was some awful coincidence, a prank meant for someone else. But the moment I saw the words, "For Jaya," written in thick black marker under the words, "Single Mom Fund," I knew exactly what it was. It wasn't a mistake. It was a joke with my name on it. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat felt like it had closed up, like someone had shoved cotton in my chest. My hands started to shake, not from anger, at least not at first, but from something deeper. Shame. The kind of shame that feels so loud even when no one's saying anything directly to you. They didn't have to. Their looks said enough. One guy nudged his friend and whispered, "I guess it's her wedding too, huh?" They both laughed. A group of women from Mira's Pilates class took selfies next to the box and tagged it number Wedding with Heart. A kid dropped a dollar bill in and said, "Is this for the poor lady?" I don't know why I didn't walk out right then. Maybe because I didn't want to cause a scene. Maybe because Kyan was still next to me, licking icing off a spoon like nothing was wrong. Or maybe because somewhere deep down I was still hoping someone, anyone, would stop it. That Mira would come rushing over and say, "Wait! This wasn't supposed to be like this. I'm so sorry." But she didn't. She walked right past me, laughing with her new in-laws. Her eyes met mine for a second, just a second. And then she looked away, like I was someone she didn't know. I moved away from the box, trying to breathe. Kian trailed behind me, clutching my hand. "Are we really poor, Mom?" he asked again, his voice soft. I knelt down, held his face in my hands, and said, We're rich in the ways that matter. It sounded hollow even as I said it, but I needed him to believe it, because if he believed it, maybe I could too. I sat down at a table near the back of the room. People were dancing now. The DJ played something loud and cheesy. Kids ran across the floor, tossing petals. Mira posed for more photos, twirling in her custom-made lehenga, and me. I sat alone with a plate of untouched food and a heart that felt like it had cracked wide open. Everywhere I looked, I saw people smiling, enjoying themselves, celebrating. And yet, I couldn't stop wondering how many of them had laughed at that stupid box. How many knew what I'd sacrificed just to be here. Nobody knew I'd paid the deposit on the venue, that I'd quietly covered the catering prepayment when Mira's card got declined, that I'd sent money, my money, without asking for anything in return, not even credit. Because Mira said, "You get it, right? You're a mom. You know what it means to do things for people you love." I did. I do. But what I didn't know was that love could be so one-sided. Someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned and saw one of Mira's bridesmaids, Chloe, I think her name was, blonde curls, designer heels. She smiled at me like she was offering me a hug, but her words came out like daggers dressed in silk. "Hey, just so you know, that box thing was totally Mira's idea. We told her it might come off wrong, but she said you'd find it funny, like empowering or something." Empowering, right. That's when I realized it wasn't just a bad joke. It was intentional, a choice. My cousin, the girl I grew up with, the one I shared secrets with and snuck candy into movie theaters with, had decided to make my struggle a spectacle. And the worst part? No one stopped her. Not her parents, not her bridesmaids, not even my own family sitting 2 tables away, who just looked down at their plates when I caught their eyes. I felt a hot rush of humiliation rise to my face. I wanted to scream, to flip the table over, to gather Keon and leave and never come back. But then, just as I stood up to leave, I saw Uncle Rajan again. He was across the room, standing near the bar. Our eyes locked, and this time, he didn't look away. He nodded once. Subtle, sharp, intentional. He knew. And something in that one small look told me this story wasn't over yet. I was done. My heart had taken all it could. The box, the whispers, the silence from people who were supposed to love me. It was more than just humiliation. It felt like betrayal stitched into every laugh, every sideways glance. I grabbed Keon's jacket from the back of his chair and stood up. "I think we're going home," I whispered to him. He looked up at me, confused. "But the dancing just started." "I know, baby," I said gently, brushing his hair back. "But I think we've danced enough for tonight." I turned toward the exit, my heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. I wasn't trying to make a scene. I didn't want anyone to stop me. I just wanted out. That's when I felt it, a hand on my shoulder, firm, steady, and familiar. I turned, and there he was, Uncle Rajan. He didn't say much. He never had to. He was the kind of man who could command a room with a glance, settle an argument with a sigh. And in that moment, he didn't give me a speech or ask me how I was feeling. He didn't apologize or try to make excuses for Mira. He simply said one word: stay. It wasn't a request. It was quiet, but it carried weight, like a doorstop holding something open that was just about to slam shut. I blinked at him. Why? His eyes softened. Because you need to hear what's coming. I didn't know what that meant. My first thought was that maybe he was trying to smooth things over, protect the family image, get me to sit down and play along until the final toast. But there was something different in his voice. The way he said it. The way he looked at me. Not like a burden or a charity case, but like someone who mattered. Like someone who had a right to be there. And maybe, after all these years of staying quiet, I owed it to myself to stay just a little longer. Not for Mira, not for appearances, but for the truth. I took a deep breath and nodded. "All right," I said. "We'll stay." Keon smiled, not understanding the weight of the moment, just happy we weren't leaving yet. We returned to our table, and I sat back down with my spine a little straighter. Not because I wasn't hurt, God I was, but because something in me had hardened. The part of me that had always let things slide, she was gone. Now I was watching everything, every expression, every laugh, every face. Across the room, Mira finally noticed I hadn't left. Her smile flickered, not guilt, just surprise, like she hadn't expected me to have the nerve to stay after what she did. The DJ changed the track. People clapped. Someone tapped a glass with a fork, and the mic was handed to the groom's father, Uncle Rajan. He stepped up with calm confidence, adjusting his collar before taking a long pause, the kind of pause that makes people lean in. He thanked everyone for coming, complimented the food, made a lighthearted joke about the groom for getting the ring that morning, and then his voice shifted. "I've been proud of many things in my life," he said, looking around the room. "But today, I want to shine a light on someone who didn't ask for recognition, someone who, without applause or reward, made this day possible." I felt my stomach tighten. People glanced around. Was he talking about the event planner? Uncle Rajan turned, slowly, and then his eyes landed on me. "Jaya," he said. My name echoed across the room. I froze. "This wedding almost didn't happen," he said. "The venue canceled. The florist pulled out. Things were falling apart. But this woman, my niece, stepped in, quietly, selflessly. She covered deposits. She negotiated contracts. She saved the day, and she never once asked for thanks. You want to know who deserves your applause tonight? It's not the caterer. It's not the DJ. It's her." A hush fell across the room. Even the kids stopped moving. He gestured toward the box, the single mom fund. "I saw that thing near the guest table. I don't know who thought it was funny, but it's not. Jaya is not a joke. She's the reason this wedding looks like it does. And if you dropped a coin in that box, you owe her a thank you. And maybe a little respect." There it was. The silence that comes after truth hits the floor like thunder. I looked around. No one was laughing now, and for the first time that night, I didn't feel like I needed to disappear. I stayed. When Uncle Rajan finished speaking, the mic clicked softly as he handed it back, and the room stayed quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from boredom or confusion. This was the kind that follows a truth so sharp it leaves everyone a little breathless. Every eye turned to me. For a second, I wanted to crawl under the table. I wasn't used to being looked at, really looked at. Not as a worker, not as a helper, not as someone people passed by, but as a person, a woman, a mother, a force. Kian squeezed my hand under the table. "Mom," he whispered, "that was about you." I smiled, my eyes glassy. "Yeah, baby, it was." Around us, the air began to shift. First, slowly. An older aunt I barely spoke to all evening came over, looking almost sheepish. She placed her hand on my shoulder and said, "I didn't know, Jaya. I'm so sorry." Then a cousin I hadn't seen since my dad's funeral. "You planned all this? It's beautiful." Even the DJ nodded in my direction. "Respect," he mouthed with a hand over his heart. The shame I had been carrying all night didn't vanish, but it changed. It turned into something else, something heavier, but stronger, like armor. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't a background character in someone else's fairy tale. I had been holding the strings the whole time. They just didn't see it until now. And Mira? She was frozen at her table. Her smile was gone. Her cheeks had lost their color. She looked like someone who just realized the spotlight had turned, but not on her. For once, she was the one sitting on the sidelines. She stood and walked over slowly, her heels echoing in the silence that followed Uncle Rajan's speech. Her dress glittered under the chandelier, but somehow it didn't look so grand anymore. It looked heavy, costume-like. When she reached me, I stood up. We were face to face, the bride and the charity case. She opened her mouth. I waited, but no words came. Instead, she let out a light, awkward laugh, trying to smooth over what had already shattered. "Oh my God," she said too brightly. "This has gotten so blown out of proportion. It was just a little joke, Jaya. You know I love you." I didn't flinch. "Was it a joke?" I asked calmly. "When you told your friends I'd bounce back because I was used to struggling?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. "Was it a joke?" I continued, my voice steady. "When you put my name on that box without asking? When you laughed while people threw coins in it like I was some street performer?" The crowd around us was silent again, watching, listening. I helped you because you asked, because we're family. But you didn't want family, Mira. You wanted props." She took a step back. Her hands clutched the sides of her dress. "I didn't mean it like that. I didn't think you'd take it personally." "I raised a child alone," I said. "While you were out drinking rosé and manifesting your dream wedding, I was budgeting groceries to keep Kian healthy. So no, I didn't take it personally. I took it seriously." She looked like she might cry, but I didn't soften, because some apologies only come after exposure, and some realizations only happen when the mask is ripped off in public. She didn't say sorry, not really. She just turned and walked away, back to her table, where even her closest bridesmaids avoided eye contact. I sat down again, and this time, people sat with me. A woman offered me her dessert. A man handed Kian a wrapped candy and said, "Your mom's amazing." Someone else asked if I did event planning professionally and if they could hire me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the one who needed help. I felt like the one who had given it and had finally been seen for it. Uncle Rajan passed behind my chair and gave my shoulder a squeeze. That was all, but it was enough. Because in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need anyone's charity. What I needed, what I had earned, was respect, and I finally got it. We left the wedding just before midnight. Kian had fallen asleep on my lap halfway through the last dance, his tiny body curled against me, his face soft with dreams. I carried him to the car in my arms, like I used to when he was little, and for the first time in days, my back didn't ache from the weight. Somehow, it felt lighter. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment after buckling him in, letting the engine hum softly beneath us. The air outside was still and cool. The stars above looked exactly the same as they always did, but everything in me had shifted. That night didn't erase the pain. It didn't magically restore the money I'd quietly poured into Mira's dream. It didn't make her apologize. But it did something I hadn't expected. It gave me back my name. Not the name scribbled in glitter under Single Mom Fund, not the whispered "Poor Jaya" people said when they thought I wasn't listening. Just Jaya, the woman who held the wedding together when everyone else let it fall apart. The woman who walked into a room full of judgment and walked out with her head held higher than ever before. The next morning, I found a message waiting on my phone. It was from Uncle Rajan. "You showed them who you really are. Should have done more sooner. I'm proud of you." That one text meant more to me than 100 public speeches, because it came from someone who'd watched me struggle without ever needing to be told. Someone who knew that my silence wasn't weakness, it was endurance, survival. Later that week, Mira reached out. A short text, no apology, just, "Let's talk when things cool down." I never replied, because some bridges aren't meant to be burned, but they're definitely not meant to be rebuilt either. At least not the same way. I didn't go to her post-wedding brunch. I wasn't at her Instagram afterglow photo shoot. I went back to work. I picked up Kian from school. I helped him build a rocket ship out of cereal boxes and duct tape. And through it all, something inside me had changed. I used to carry my struggle like it was something shameful, something I had to hide behind a tight smile and polite excuses. But now, I wear it like a badge. Because being a single mom isn't a punchline, it's a superpower. There are people who will laugh at your story, especially when they've never had to live through it. People who will see your sacrifices as flaws, who will turn your strength into something pitiful just to feel superior. But those people, they couldn't last a week in your shoes. Let them laugh. Because when everything falls apart, when things get real, they'll look around for someone to hold it all together. And chances are, they'll find someone like you. The quiet one. The one who never asked for credit. The one who carried it all without complaint. The truth is, I wasn't the joke at that wedding. I was the foundation. And that's what I want other women, other mothers, other forgotten, underestimated people to know. You might be the one people overlook, mock, or dismiss, but you are essential. The glue, the fire, the heart, even when they don't see it right away, especially when they don't. That night taught me not to wait around for other people to give me permission to be proud of myself. I don't need a speech. I don't need applause. I have something better. I have a son who looked at me the night we got home and said, "You were like a superhero, Mom." I smiled, kissed his forehead and said, "No, baby, I'm just your mom." And for the first time in a long time, that felt like the most powerful thing I could ever be. You never know who's holding everything together until they stop. Respect the quiet ones. They're stronger than you think. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it. Hit that like button. It really helps more people find this kind of content. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated? Laughed at for something you were quietly carrying? Share your story below. Let's lift each other up. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories about strength, motherhood, dignity, and quiet resilience, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Lastly, if you want more real stories that hit you in the heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I post every week, and I promise, what's coming next? You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.